Welcome to the Ship Happens podcast, a podcast about construction, education, and everything in between. I am your host, Joseph Garibaldi, and I invite you to take a listen to a new and exciting podcast about construction and teaching. Thank you guys.
Welcome back to Ship Happens. I'm excited to do this podcast. I'm always excited to do one of these. Today is nonetheless, I have found a way to talk about budget, right? Don't leave. I promise you, I'll make it a good time. I hope. But I want to talk about budgets in a different way than you may have heard people talk about budgets, because we all know those Dave Ramsey people. Hell, I work with one who budgets their money, right? Budgets that source of income, right? They budget their own source of income. And while budgeting is fine, I live with a wonderful woman who budgets everything, and she has gotten me to understand the importance of budgeting money. Now, I have not been very good with money my, whole life. I've struggled with trying to budget and save money, and I'm kind of a sucker for a lot of those cool things that I just have to have, But I'm going to hopefully tell you guys some ways that you can budget and relate those to make some money as well, because if you budget right for a customer, you might be able to make some money. So let's go on about that. So how do we budget our lives? There's a couple things we spend in our lives. We spend time, we spend money. We may even spend a little bit of our heart on a relationship, but how do we budget that time? What is a budget? A budget is a set list of procedures that you're going to either use to save money, save time, or save something, right? That's what a budget is. Why is it important for a business to have a budget? Well, first off, your customer is going to ask for a budget. Your customer may actually even have a budget. Your customer may be like, look, I can only spend $3,000 on this renovation. And you're like, oh God, that's a $5,000 renovation, man. Can't spend $3 on this, but you're gonna have to find a way to spend $3,000. That's their budget, right? And you're also gonna have to find a way for you to spend less than the budget so you can make some money as well. That's kind of the struggle. So let's talk about budgeting in terms of construction. When you go out for an estimate, you're going to essentially measure the area. My dad did tiles, so I'm going to come at this from a tile perspective. You would go out to a bathroom. They want the tile completely ripped up, put new tile in, and new tile around their bathtub or whatever, right? So my dad would come in, he would measure out where all the tile would need to go, find the square footage, how much tile he needs, punch some numbers. My dad would do it the same day. My dad would get an estimate to them or a price to them that same day. He would get all the measurements, go to his truck, work it out in 30 minutes, come back, give them a price, right? In his mind, the quicker you got them a price, the more amped they were to take your price, right? People like to shop around, but if you come at them right away with a price and be like, hey, I can start, in a week, I can start in 3 days, then they are more likely to take your bid, right? And it's all about playing that price game. If they've already had other people come out to give bids, you don't want to be the highest bid. They're not going to take you. You necessarily don't want to be the lowest bid either. I probably wouldn't take a low bid, but you want to find that sweet spot where you can make some money and you can make the customer feel like they are getting a good deal as well. And in some cases, they probably are getting a good deal. So how do we do those budgets? So after my dad would punch a number, he would essentially figure out, okay, how much does tile cost? What vendor can he go to get tile at a cheaper price? Because my dad is going to charge 1 for his labor and 2 for materials. So how can he cut one of those down to meet a customer's budget? Well, very simple. You shouldn't cut down your labor. Your time is worth money. In fact, if you cut your time, then you're really cutting into your own skill and your own, project. People are buying your service. They're not buying, they can go to Home Depot and buy the tile themselves, but they're really buying your skill to do the job. So knowing that, you shouldn't discount your skill. So my dad focused on getting really good deals on tile, and he never went to Home Depot or any one of those types of companies, but he always went to local places, local dealers. In San Jose, and back Campbell is where I grew up, there's a dealer over there called Tile Fantastic. I don't even know if they're around, but I spent a lot of time at Tile Fantastic. I grew up there. I knew everyone that worked there at the time because my dad just bought all of his tile from them wholesale because he got a really good deal on tile. He also kept an inventory on tile. Any extra money he made, he bought tile using those profits. So eventually he wouldn't have to go out and buy tile. He would already have that stocked up and inventoried, and he can get pure profit out of that after the fact. But that's a whole another thing we'll get to during this talk. So my dad would try to find wholesalers and dealers of tile and granite and get those things through them. And you usually get a really good deal. In fact, if you go to Home Depot right now, let's do that. So I'm just going to go to Home Depot's website. I have a computer in front of me, so if you hear some tapping, that's what it is. So if we go to Home Depot's website and we're looking at tile, right, there's a lot of departments. So tiles underneath flooring, all right, tile, perfect. So I can get tile under $1 per square foot, right? Tile under $1 per square foot. Let's click on that. Let's see what we got. So here's some ceramic floor tiles, 7 inches by 20 inches. inches, and that would be 76 cents per square foot on sale right now. Most tile, I would say, is about 78.99 cents per square foot in terms of really cheap tile. So these are ceramic and porcelain tiles. It's really nothing super, I mean, I guess they're not all expensive, but let's look real quick. Let's go back. Let's just go up to the tile that is $5 per square foot and see what we got here. So very basic one color gray blue tile. Okay, so now we got tile that is priced per square foot. I'll do $4 to $4.99. So it looks like right here the kind of most, I mean, there's a more expensive tile like actual marble stonework and marble tile. There's some polished marble kind of looking. It's not even, it's just like a pattern put on it. So it's just porcelain tile. I don't even know. That's weird. So it looks like most of the tile here that is, I guess, expensive are just pattern tile. So it's basically tile that's meant to look like wood, but they're actually like porcelain locking tile. In fact, this kind of tile is $3.99 per square footage. And I think that's actually a really nice tile, but it's definitely meant not for a bathroom. If you were to look at this, this is looks like polished tile. This one is $1.99 per square foot. So tiles are relatively inexpensive. My dad would get tile that is, say, $1.99. He would get that about half off going through a wholesaler because he would buy so much. And in fact, Home Depot does have bulk pricing. For example, this subway tile, which I absolutely despise. I do not like subway tile at all. Subway tile is relatively inexpensive, and for some reason, a lot of people like it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it looks really basic. I like black and granite looking tile. I think those are really nice. But my dad would go and he would budget and find tile that was a good deal that would match the customer. He would always give a customer a real life sample. You can go to places and get a sample piece of tile and bring it to your customer. Your customer may have a tile color in mind that they already want. So my dad tries to look for, at least 3 different colors. He would get a wide range of colors, go from a dark gray to a white to sort of a brown kind of rustic look. But he always looked at the color of the walls. You want the tile to either contrast the color of the walls so it really pops the room, or you want it to marry or complement the color of the walls so that everything kind of is seamless and flows together. So it's all about that. So he'll pick 3 different tiles, 3 different price points, and give it to them. This gives them the illusion, not really the illusion, but this gives them the power if they would like to make a sale in some particular way, or if they would like to buy that tile, they can buy expensive tile, they can buy cheap tile, they can buy a middle of the road tile, and more than likely they would buy the middle of the road tile either in the color that he recommended or a different color because they don't want to get the cheapest tile, but they also don't want to get the expensive tile. So you need to give them 3 choices. When it comes down to budgeting and getting people to spend more money or getting people to get a better product, I shouldn't say spend more money because in reality, we're not trying to, gouge them of their money, gouge our customers of their money. We're trying to get them a good product, right? And we know what cheap product is like. We know what expensive product is like, and that's nice, but we also know that middle of the road is probably good enough, and we really want to sway them to that middle high range item because they're going to be a lot happier with it. They're going to notice that it lasts for a lot longer of a period of time, and they're going to know that they're getting a good quality product from you. So you give them 3 price ranges. They're more than likely, as a customer, I would do this, and as most customers would more than likely pick the middle item, right? The middle price. If I give you an item that is $1, $2, $4, I'm probably going to go with the $2 one because in my mind, it's a little bit better of a product, and it more than likely is. And I trust, and that's where the tile men, you have to build some trust, and that's where anyone, tile, concrete, carpentry, you have to build that trust between you and the customer, build that rapport, that relationship between you and the customer so they trust what you are doing. However, if you violate that trust, then you deserve to lose that customer. You deserve any sort of, negative review. So make sure you're always having the customer in mind, and that's kind of the main purpose of our job is to always have that customer in mind and always do what's best for that customer. If the customer wants the 79 cent per square foot tile, that's what they want. You can tell them all you want that it's probably going to break. I can attest to this. My house was a flip, and I know my tile's cheap because it's already cracked and broken in some places. Like you can just tell most tiles can take a hit from something falling on them, but cheap tile is very thin, not very strong, and pretty brittle actually. So it cannot take a hit very well. And I think that's where the struggle is, or the problem is with that, is that our tile or any product, we have to be able to know if that product is a good product or if that product is one you should avoid. So that being said, when it comes down to concrete, it's very similar. You have to know the use of the product. Are you going to be driving a heavy vehicle on it? How thick is that concrete slab have to be? What are you doing in terms of concrete, right? So it's all about knowing the material, knowing the customer and their needs, and also knowing what you can get a product for as well. There are 3 relationships you need to build: one between your customer, one between your supplier, and one to the knowledge of whatever trade you are taking up. You need to know those 3 things. You need to have a good relationship with a supplier. They are your bread and butter. Without them, you couldn't give a good price to your customer and win the bid. Without the relationship to your customer, they won't even pick you. If they don't feel comfortable with you, they will not pick you. And without knowing materials and without knowing the situation, just having that general knowledge, you won't be able to give the customer a good quality product or a good quality project done. They are paying you because they don't want to do the job. They want to hire a professional to do the job because they know a professional can do the job professionally and better. So be that professional. You need to be that professional. Now, once you figure out your material costs, once you figure out your customer's budget, how can you budget yourself to make that? Well, like I said before, my dad would buy tile. If he found a sale on tile or something, he would buy tons of tile and keep that tile as inventory. He never threw away tile. You never know when you might need a stack of tile. He was a hoarder of tile. He built his own shop and everything, and he always kept boxes and boxes of tile in that shop. Because if he bought tile that was being discontinued or on sale and bought, 100 square foot of that tile, he might have spent, $200 on it, but naturally, or it might be going for $400. So he could have saved half the price and then charged the customer $400 because he knows if he goes to Home Depot and tries to find the tile that he's getting, they're not going to find it for as low of a price that he got it. To kind of put it in perspective, a lot of price scalping works that way. If you go to a sports game, a ticket is going to be cheaper day of than it would be 2 weeks prior because they need to sell those tickets, especially in games where they're being televised. They need to have a certain amount of people in the stands. If they don't have those people in the stands, then that game will not be televised and nobody making money. So ticket scalpers will go and buy tickets either way prior and get the cheap early bird edition tickets and then resell them for more expensive tickets later, or they'll buy it day of and resell them as you're walking into the stadium for standard price. It works the same kind of way. You need to buy materials, you need to buy product as it comes out, right? Or as it comes on sale, I should say, not as it comes out. Concrete's a little bit differently because you don't have inventory of concrete. So that relationship with a person is even more important. My grandpa used a company in San Jose called Star Concrete. They are manufacturers of concrete. They make the concrete, they put everything together and they use the cement, all that kind of stuff to make their concrete. So he used Star to be his vendor, his dealer of concrete. He would use them, then he would send them to a job and then his guys would be there or he would be there and he would primarily be the skill needed. So Star benefited from California Concrete and California Concrete benefited from Star. They worked together. If my grandpa did not have a concrete dealer, he wouldn't be able to do jobs as effectively than if he had a concrete person. So when someone pays my grandpa, they're paying him for his skill and they're also paying for the material. He had a little bit of a different kind of perspective on things. Customers would pay for the material outright. Whatever the material cost was, he wouldn't raise it, he wouldn't do anything. They would pay for the price of it. Then he would charge labor and they would pay for his labor. So the customer would pay for the concrete as if they were to buy it themselves, which is honestly kind of a good move, at least back in the 80s or 70s and 80s it was. The customer would buy the concrete, just like if they were going to Home Depot to buy the tile. Then they would have my grandpa lay the concrete out, set everything up, set the forms, and actually use the concrete or use that product and use his skill and lay out the product and make that product better or make that product into their project, whatever their vision was. So that being said, when it comes down to budgets, it's important to know a couple things, right? It's important to know those things I talked about before. Knowledge of the product, knowledge of your customer, and knowledge of your supplier. And that goes for anything. When it comes down to construction, buying wood from a wholesaler is infinitely better than buying it from Home Depot or Lowe's. I do have to say though, Home Depot and Lowe's are getting way better with their wholesaling to contractors. Like, I think I can get a really good deal on drywall right now just through Home Depot and Lowe's instead of a regular wholesaler. It's kind of impressive how good they're getting and how much undercutting they're doing on their prices, right? It's also kind of scary for those local businesses that, my dad relies on. Like, I don't even think Tile Fantastic is there anymore. It might be, but my dad was a huge supporter of small businesses. He was a huge supporter of going to places and getting their product because he knows if there was a problem, he can go back to that place and talk to the person that sold it. Whereas if there's a problem, then he has to go to Home Depot Depot and go through the return process and that corporate ladder, and it just wasn't working for him. He wouldn't. That's not how my dad rolls. My dad rolled on a handshake. Like, that was good enough for him. And I think as the world changes, we need to change the way we budget, right? We need to change the way we spend money. We need to change the way we charge customers, and we need to change the way we do projects. As things get crazier and as social media gets even more wide, we learn a couple different things. We learn that anyone, anywhere can get any service they want for almost any price they want. I have this app called Nextdoor where I can see all like what my neighbors like talk about, and it's always like these old people complaining about how their neighborhood is going to hell. But people ask for services like, I need an electrician, I need a handyman. How much would he charge to do this? And if I were to ask an electrician to do it, like a licensed electrician, they get, it would cost, I don't know, a few $100s for whatever the service is. But someone who's just a handyman may charge them $100 to do it. But it's scary because they're not licensed, they're not insured, and ultimately the project, if something were to go wrong, especially electricity, if something were to go wrong, the homeowner will be liable for that. To give you a little bit of an example on liability, I was asked by a gentleman at work if I could hook up a generator to the main in his house so when the power goes off, the generator will kick on and power his house. Okay, theoretically, I can do that. It comes with a wiring diagram in the generator for that particular need. But should I do that? No, because guess what? If I were to hook that up wrong and PG&E goes to do some work and turns off the power, but the generator kicks on and sends power back into that line, he thinks that the power's off, but in reality, I'm pumping power through that line that he's working on. Let's say he gets killed. Who's the blame? Not me. I'm not to blame. I don't have insurance nor the license to do it. So they hold the actual homeowner as responsible because he did not get a licensed legal service. He got some random dude to do it. It's all about knowing the law, knowing the customer, knowing the budget. Not to say that handymen aren't handy, but I am saying that you need to know what they're doing and what is the legal way of doing it. For example, concrete. If you just want a concrete pad poured, right? Anyone with general knowledge of concrete can probably pour a simple concrete pad. However, if you need a foundation poured for a building that's sort of to go on, I probably wouldn't use Joe down the street who read a book about concrete. I probably would actually go through a company or go through a person who has a contractor's or concrete license to actually pour that concrete. So it's all about knowing, as a customer, it's about knowing what you want, what price you need, and what budget you have. For a builder, it's about knowing the customer, knowing the price they want, and knowing the price you can get. Because remember, you need to get paid too. Never forget that. Even if it's family, you need to get paid too in some way. So make sure you are taking care of yourself, make sure you're budgeting right, and make sure you're getting paid. When it comes down to projects at school, when it comes down to me building or my students building a project, I typically have customers pay for the materials, then they pay for my students' build time. So it really just depends. Right, it really depends on the project, how long I think it takes them to build it, and how much I charge. Sometimes it only takes me a couple hours. I'll charge $50. So $100 in materials, $50 in, I don't know, to build, a table, right? Assuming that the wood is good and I don't have to do anything extra, it should about cost me about $150 to build the table for them. $100 in material, more or less, depending on what table they want built, and another $100 or another $50 for my time and labor. But it all depends on who I'm building it for and what I think I can get in return. I have no problem building things if I trade what I'm building for something else. Like, doing sort of trades is a good deal too, but you gotta know your worth, know your value, know what you want. Budget your own business, budget your life, and create something that's worth building. That is the first lesson in business. Learn how to budget and learn how to talk to customers. That's all it is. If you can budget, if you can like barely scrape by for the first couple years, that's what you're going to do. You're not going to make a whole lot of money right away. Some people do, but most people don't, and that's okay. So how can we budget? How can we make our lives just a hair better? We can do that by understanding how we can budget our money, by understanding our customer, and again, understanding our knowledge base. Hey, I want to thank you all for listening to my podcast. I really appreciate you guys. I know I say this every week. This is episode 10, I believe. Could be wrong. I don't know. If you have any questions, if you want to know more about budgets, eventually I'm going to talk about invoicing. And so if I kind of leave off on a random ledge here, like a cliffhanger, understand that eventually I'm going to come full circle to invoicing a customer and how we actually make that money and how we can actually use that budget, right? This talk is just about importance of budgets. That's all it really is. Okay, guys, I appreciate every single one of you. You guys be safe. If you're listening to this during any of the holidays, which it should come out first week in November, this episode. So I hope you guys, if you guys don't listen, whatever, have a great Thanksgiving, great holiday time. I love this time of year, even though it is COVID, but this time of year is my favorite, and I will catch you guys next week. We'll see you guys.
This has been an episode of the Ship Happens podcast. Thank you all for listening, and I will catch you next week with another exciting episode.